Hey, so today is 3 years since they found the name on my birth certificate, guilty in my absence, while I was under self-isolation instructions due to caring for my father. On the 4th of August, I was in court, and I wasn't allowed into court because the security were preventing me from entering the building, and by the time I get upstairs into the court, I was handed a piece of paper that I'd been found guilty of. The name had been found guilty, and I was there to represent my case. That was the 4th of August. I got home after court, after not being allowed in the court. My dad had been really poorly. I got home and he had a heart attack and a seizure right in front of me. And he died. I saw the lights go out. So I brought him back to life. Compressions on the chest. Got his heart beating again. Called an ambulance. We called an ambulance, told them that he'd had a heart attack because he'd had heart problems before, triple heart bypass, and nearly didn't survive the ventilator then. So he'd had a heart attack and a seizure, and I brought him back to life. Called an ambulance, and all they were bothered about was testing him for COVID with a PCR test that was not fit for purpose. Does not diagnose any disease, and it was stated by Dominic Raab that the tests were 93% false positive. So my dad had a seizure and a heart attack and he died in front of me. I brought him back to life. We called the ambulance to take him into hospital, and they diagnosed him positive with COVID with a 93% false positive test rate. He was sent home 2 hours later to take paracetamol, and told to take paracetamol, and that was it. So when I saw him the next morning, I asked him to come to mine. He came on his own free will. I didn't kidnap him. He came because he knew that I was going to look after him. He was in my care 3 days, and he was getting better. I was feeding him vegetables and natural foods, making sure he was hydrated. I was bathing him. I was even wiping his bum. But he was getting better. And on the 7th of August, certain family members called the ambulance. Don't forget that I had not seen these family members. They didn't come and help or bring any soup or even lay eyes on my father, my dad. I was there. And they took it upon themselves to call an ambulance to take my dad in to hospital for my care. They didn't call my dad, they didn't call me. All I knew was when I got a knock at the door, they said, "You may not agree with our decision, but we've called an ambulance." The ambulance came to my house. I was dealing with the courts, the police, and everything else at the time. So these family members that weren't offering support called the ambulance because they thought that my dad was in danger in my care. He got taken in to hospital from my house on the 7th of August. And that was the last time I saw him. I was told that I couldn't ring the hospital anymore. I was called by my mum to say that he was being put on a ventilator. I just want to point out something. When my dad had a triple heart bypass, he went on the ventilator, and he shouldn't have gone on the ventilator because he should have had the surgeon who had gone through all his history and the individuality of care to say to him that she didn't think that he would survive the ventilator, so she was going to do it. She was an Indian surgeon. She was going to do it on I can't remember what they call it now, but it wasn't a ventilator. They were going to do it sedated because of his history. But this surgeon, on the day that he was supposed to go in, got called on an emergency. And he just had some random surgeon who followed the normal procedure. Probably didn't even look at his notes. And he went on a ventilator. And this was 2017. He nearly didn't survive that ventilator. We went through so much trauma. And that was 2017. So when he got taken from my care on the 7th, due to a positive COVID test, he was put on a ventilator. He was in hospital for about 2 weeks. And I was trying to call the hospital and say, like, you know, please check his records, his notes, because where's his individuality of care? And then he was put on a ventilator a little while later. And my mum called me to say that he'd been put on a ventilator, but I'd been stopped from ringing the hospital. But because he was going on a ventilator, I rang the hospital wanting to speak to my dad because I knew that was going to be the last time I saw him. And I rang and I got through to the ward and they said, it's not convenient. It's not convenient right now. We're getting him ready for the ventilator. And it was all blasé, like I was panicking for nothing. I knew it was going to be the last time. The 7th of August was the last time I saw him. And they wouldn't put me through to him. They wouldn't let me speak to him. And I managed to get the medical records from the hospital. And it clearly states that he asked to speak to his daughter. He knew that he was not going to survive that ventilator. And he had no loved ones, no one there to support him, no one there to fight for him. I was just demonised as crazy. But that's okay. Anyway, on the 11th of August, I was due in court, but I'd been told by the NHS to self-isolate. And I informed the court that I couldn't attend due to self-isolation, and they found me guilty. They found the name guilty in my absence. There was a warrant out for 2 years when I was dealing with paperwork, putting in applications for my evidence, for the rule of law to be followed in these court procedures, and it never happened. But as I said, my dad asked to speak to his daughter before he went on that ventilator, and that didn't happen. 11th of August today, the day that they found the name guilty in her absence. Or was there someone in that court pretending to be that name? I don't know. No one wants to tell me anything. So it's still a myth.